On the topic of.
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 On the topic of love.
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 I think it's an interesting question because I feel like every time you get your heart broken, you feel like you have never felt this way before. Every heartbreak is different.
I wasn't actually in a relationship. It was a family friend that was close to us.
Yeah, I had a secret boyfriend.
I was like 15 and very in love with a girl who was very much older than me.
I thought I was so in love, and maybe I didn't really know what love was before.
But we really cared about each other a lot, and the more we hung out as friends, the more we cared for each other more, and the more I realized, oh my God, I think I'm in love with this person.
Everything was going well. The person called my friend and then said that it was over, but wouldn't talk to me, so I had no idea what was going on.
I was still of the mind that like love makes everything work, and that you can fix everything with a kiss and like a little bit of fairy dust. And she didn't believe that.
Every time someone would mention the person's name or anything like that, I would like tear up, and I couldn't even think about it. Every time I'd be like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna live afterwards? I was so extra. I was so dramatic.
I broke up with him because I didn't want to lie anymore. And whenever we were out, I kind of had this like constant like, who's gonna see me? Are they gonna see my mom? Are they gonna tell my mom?
I kind of confessed my love to him, and then he didn't feel the exact same way, it was heartbreaking, but I think I grew a lot from that. I progressed and realized that your worth isn't determined by what other people think of you, it's what you think of yourself, and that took me a long time to realize.
I just had to make a choice for myself. I've always found power and strength in like really yielding into the things that I'm feeling. And so I just kind of decided that if I was gonna be sad, I would just be sad. Like I would just let it be awful and suck and really, really hurt.
I think the effect of surprise really impacted the heartbreak. And I think afterwards, I never really had such a heartbreak because like, yeah, I would be sad, but I knew that it was temporary, so I think that helped.
I think it was just eye-opening to me that there are people in this world who don't believe the things that I believe in. There are different types of people, and you never think that when you're younger. You think that you are the entire world, and that everything in the world is exactly the way you think it is. And I think that heartbreak, be it my first heartbreak, was the first real lesson I learned from something like that.
All right, my first major heartbreak, I would say, is when my mother passed away.
I was probably around 8 or 9, and my mother was diagnosed with cancer.
My first heartbreak, I think, was my parents, which I know is not what people think about when they think about heartbreaks.
I was 15, and I was definitely heartbroken, as you can imagine. It was really hard to deal with, of course. And as time went on, I wouldn't say it got easier, but there is still that void in my heart.
They had a very like sort of tumultuous relationship that wasn't really healthy for us growing up. I remember this like one instance, we were all curled up crying, and I think my uncle came over and he was trying to resolve and help one of their many fights. He grabbed my hand, he's like, come here right now. And he took me to the living room where they were still kind of going at it. I mean, they recognized that I was coming into the room, and I remember both my mom and my dad were kind of like, what the hell are you doing here? And my uncle said, look at what you're doing. Like, look at what you're doing to your children. I don't remember which parent it was, but one of them were like, what does this have to do with you? This has nothing to do with you. Like, they just didn't realize how it could affect a little human's heart, you know? I remember after that, I was like, I'm never gonna cry again. And I actually built this defense mechanism where I wouldn't show my emotion.
I remember going to visit her in the hospital, and she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer and bladder cancer, and basically everything that can happen down there that's bad was happening to her. And I mean, now it's a funny story that my parents and my grandparents tell, is when I went to visit her in the hospital, and I go up to the hospital bed and I see my mom lying there, pale as a ghost. You know, I hold my mom's hand and I look into her eyes and I asked her, you know, "Mommy, are you dead?" And in that moment, I thought she was gone. I thought I had lost her, and it was the most pain I think I've ever felt, and to this day, probably the biggest heartache I've ever had.
Shaped me in a way to be very kind and understanding. Having that final loss just makes me remember to appreciate the little things in life and be grateful for all the things you have. I still have lots of family that's loving and supporting. And I know she's always here with me.
I think the idea of losing my mother that young definitely put a lot of things in perspective. It really made me think about what was important to me, what qualities I really treasured in my mom, and loving her and seeing how she loved me in return. It taught me a lot about how to care for someone and kind of a different way of living. Because I noticed not everyone's parents treated their kids that way. You know, they didn't have this bond that me and my mother had, something that was very special and unique. And it kind of led me on a path to be a little bit more vulnerable every day.
I definitely didn't understand love for a long time. I really, at the beginning anyway, I understood love as something very transactional, very conditional. You give me something, I give you something. And as a result of understanding love that way, because I saw how my parents were treating what I thought should have been love and then not really giving that to me in the ways that I needed it, I mimicked that behavior in relationships with friends, and even, you know, romantic relationships. When it changed is when I started practicing self-love. That changed the whole game, because how I viewed myself changed, and therefore what I felt like I deserved changed, and what love actually means came very crystal clear. Very crystal clear.
This heartbreak shaped me in the sense that I got to see how painful it could be to give yourself to someone and then think that you're so in the moment and it's so beautiful, and then it ends. I think I realized that things were temporary sometimes and that it was okay to still embrace the moment, even if it means taking a risk, and that it could end, because I was still able to learn from my mistakes, to learn from how I heal, how it's possible to heal even if it seems impossible in the moment.
I think that if anything, it just made me realize that I just need to be aware that not everybody loves the same way I love. And that just because somebody isn't giving you something the way you would give, or acting the way that you feel like you would act in that situation, doesn't mean that they don't love you the same way. It just means that they love you the way that they do. And in terms of how it shaped how I see love today, I just look for people who believe in fairy tales and think that love can be what you want it to be if you're willing to work on it and to wait for the person who sees it the same way you do, or close to the same way you do.
I think it was a fundamental building block for who I am today, actually, because it taught me how to not sacrifice everything in my life for one person. For example, he was still talking to his ex. I kind of felt that I wasn't worthy enough, I guess. You shouldn't have to be someone else's second option when they're your first. I think I should have been my own first option first, and realized that my self-worth and self-confidence should have been put ahead of anyone. It takes a lot of peace with yourself and like being peace with people who have hurt you in the past in order to move on, because every challenge in life is an opportunity. It's the climb that's worth it, and the view, not just getting to the top right away. So I'm really glad for all that. I thank him, to be honest.
At some point in my life, in my teenagehood, I really landed at this conviction that like heartbreak can be healthy, that we can live through it, that like there is truth and goodness and like wisdom inside of us that we get to access by like allowing heartbreak. People like are only themselves and are only taking care of themselves. And in a world where we like can only take care of ourselves, other people's truths are gonna harm ours. And so we have the capacity for heartbreak. The biggest lesson that I learned from my mom, one of them, was that I should cry, I should feel it, I should let that happen, but then you need to know when you have to say enough. I gotta pick my head back up. And now I would tell myself back then, I would say just, it's okay to be sad, that you don't get to have the validation of the way he makes you feel, because that can be a positive thing. But you have your own validation. If it's pain that is happening, let it. Let it be useful to you, honor it, let it go.
Perfect portrait of love is a Sunday morning in front of a fireplace on opposite ends of the couch with a book and 3 dogs and a cat.
It's this bond that, you know, you feel very secure in, and you feel safe and warm and welcome.
It would be meeting someone and it's just really organic, not really having looked for the person and vice versa, and it just kind of flows. There's just this energy, this connection that I wouldn't be able to explain, but it would just be there.
Walking alongside on a path next to someone else. And we can walk beside each other together on these roads, regardless of where they go.
Not having to depend on the person completely, but wanting to depend on the person, wanting to build that trust with someone. Because I think when you have experienced so many different things in your life, when you want to be with someone rather than need to be with someone, it's a beautiful thing because you appreciate each other's presence.
We can still be in companionship in our journey, choosing to devote, choosing to honor, choosing to redirect your roads so that they move in parallel.
Of course, to have common interests, but also have different interests so that I can learn from that person, and so that person can learn from me, and so that it could be a mutual exchange.
Hopefully it's something that will never end, even like people can remember the beautiful feelings I've left behind with the person I love, but also with my family, because it includes them in this portrait.
If you ever see those sculptures with 2 or 3 people and their arms are interconnected, they're bonded, the arms are like bonded, right, as one, just like that. Because family's forever, right?
For me, like, I just picture like all of these colors, like vibrant red and like this deep blue, like there's just all of this depth and warmth and comfort.
It's waking up and feeling excited to go on an adventure, and it's knowing that there's somebody in the world who wakes up thinking about you and who goes to sleep thinking about you. And it's all of the things the books tell you it is, and then it's so much more. It's simple mornings, and it's compromise and understanding and just pushing somebody to be the best that they can be because they push you to be the best that you can be.
Like, love is just flowy. Love is very easy. When love is hard, as much as you might feel love for that person, you probably should get out, straight up. Because I know what love is now. I'm in love right now. And I also love my friends and my family in different ways that I understand love on a larger scale. Love is so big, you know? Love is so big. It's free, and you can give it for free, and you can receive it for free. It's free 99, and that's what I love about it. I love love. It's so cheesy.
On the topic of love, let it be organic.
On the topic of love, let it be truth.
On the topic of love, it's infinite.
On the topic of love, it's colorful.
On the topic of love, be thankful for your heartbreaks.
On the topic of love, believe in magic and fairy dust.
On the topic of love, it is fearless and it is freedom.